To read next, I'd like to introduce Patricia Farrell, unfortunately to read with me. A round of applause for Patricia, please.
Floating on a point, a roll of paper hitting, deliberate paths and crossings led by chance. Several types of pin and nut slipping out of the pose, letting itself evaporate. The dance of death, each slice searches, pressing the point, an epitaph. That's all we're doing.
To stutter and that be funny. To have a cruel search for music instead of poetry, because music doesn't need to be explained or introduced. It is just mysteriously left alone by divs with their sofas and flashlights.
A blow to the head, lit from a strange angle, the figures interrupted, a slice as a short round piece of wood, and then you catch yourself, drawing into the palm of the hand, jumps up as the page is turned, turning, leaving the body in space, an illusion of.
Then you want to understand a poem without a wholesome, full introduction.
Bolted at a slant to escape a sudden start or movement, bolted, slid into a socket, founded, a factory, a fact, an exhaustive effort, sifted, like through a cloth, a length of woven, locked barefoot on concrete, a graph to cover you, in writing, bolted, tight, bolted, drawn back into.
To escape a sudden start of movement, bolted, slid into a socket, founded in a factory, exhausted effort, sifted through a cloth, a woven, clocked graph to cover you, in writing, bolted, tight, bolted, trite. Oh, I've lost it.
The case as by the action of a key, bolted, up and stuttered, the play of steps, the speaker sketches with a finger, to pass and separate, a sudden tucking in, to spring into collision, ejects the empty part of lightning, to stiffly upright, strictly rigid, halted.
The case, as by the action of the key, bolted up, stuttered, the play of steps, the speaker strips, with a finger to pass and separate, a sudden tucking in, to spring into collision, eject the empty part of lightning, to stiffly upright, halted. That was it.
Lost it somewhere in the limbic system, arcs and circles, that unplaced object, that empty space, a chopping block, a fragment, arms and legs as hems and edges, a cipher scratch, a weaving error, knitted, porous, paler on each successive page.
Lost it somewhere in the limbic system, arc, system, unplaced object, empty space, chopping block, a fragment, arms and legs as hems and edges, a cipher scratch, a weaving errand, knitted, porous, paler, on each successive page. Lost it.
Threaded to receive a sudden dash, a run, a sudden desertion.
Threaded to receive a sudden dash, a run, a sudden desertion.
From a meeting, like the edges of a folded sheet that must be cut.
From a meeting, like the edges of a folded sheet that must be cut.
Like on a jet of water, molten glass, blurted out the map.
Like on a jet of water, molten glass, blurted. I've lost it.
Or grid that picks your meaning, a roll of something in order.
A grid that picks your meaning, a roll of something in order. Strobe light, right in heaven, forcing balance to learn Joseph Pilates' secret time. It's a music. Folded, it is a cutting meat like a butcher, like Salt Bay with Leonardo DiCaprio. I bite my knuckles as Hannah from Paul's poem walks by, and I'm short, for only the tall can stand.
A concise handling of the light, arrested, punched into the paper, corporeal, your portrait turning the surface, fragile with arms of steel, a short round arrow with a heavy head, the borderline of the body grown out, seeded, prematurely, whirls of fever.
They can also stand here in a city of what? a failed mechanism, a head that has one face, one end, that can be cut at the corner of mouths to screw the other.
Bolt-like, left in limbo, trying to balance in time to music, folded, removed, when cutting short, for only can stand can also fall, over, a mechanism, a head at one end, like a screw thread at the other, to utter, each edge searches, an equivalent to flesh and light.
To stutter and that be funny, to have a cruel search for music instead of poetry, because music doesn't need to be explained or introduced. It is just mysteriously left alone by divs with their sofas and flashlights.
Floating on a point, a roll of paper hitting, deliberate, paths and crossings, led by chance several types of pin and nut, slipping out of the pose, letting itself evaporate the dance of death. Each slice searches, pressing, the point, an epitaph. That's all we're doing.